Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for Chronicles in Critiquing, where we're going to review the third episode of Warrior at the Borderline, Reason to Fight. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you want to skip to my thoughts at the end, you could see the link in the video. Anyway, this episode picks up right from the end of episode 2, where Shiba is facing down some people, a bunch of suits, he's getting destroyed, and some other mech saves him, winds up killing everybody, and he's just like, hey, follow me, let's peace out, I'll get your back. We find out this guy's name is Tezuka, and he's part of this kind of like liberation army called Yatagarusu, which is giving me flashbacks to a dark period of Yu-Gi-Oh!, but that's besides the point. So Yatagarusu is kind of like the terrorist group, but they claim to be freedom fighters, so again, we're kind of seeing a little bit of the propaganda aspect from the last episode, where we have the imperialists who are sort of trying to, kind of like brainwash everyone with this propaganda, but there's actually like a little bit of a deeper story. So basically they're like, hey, this is actually our mech. We, had designed it, and we were getting ready to take possession of it when that crew kind of like got killed or whatever, and that's how you got it, and it's actually ours, but you seem to be like pretty cool with it, and you seem like a cool enough guy, so why don't you just like join up with us? And Shiba's not kind of like 100% sure what he wants to do, because he's like, well, it's kind of fun in these mech battles, but I don't really know if I want to like kill everybody. So then we also meet Kozaki, who's kind of sent in by Yatagarusu to sort of, seduce Shiba a little bit, to get him to join up with them, and they exchange, everyone kind of exchanges their tragic backstories. Kozaki, hers is a little uninteresting. She's like, oh, well, my parents got into a car accident, and the person was from the Asian, military occupation force, and because the government is corrupt, they got off with it, which is like, I don't know, a little bit of an uninspiring story to join a terrorist group that's just like killing everybody, but what do I know? Shiba has a much more generic anime backstory. Both of his parents unfortunately died of anime illness. I'm sure his mom had a sideways ponytail. I'm sure that if we eventually flash back to her, that's what she'll look like. So basically, then we also are introduced to the pilot that saves him. This guy named Tezuka. That one I'll remember. That name I could definitely remember. And he's just like, he's super gung-ho about the resistance stuff, and his parents also died in some sort of tragic backstory or whatever. And so he goes to Shiba and he's like, hey, I gotta toughen you up. And they kind of bond over a few days of doing exercises, and obviously in an effort to reuse as much animation as possible, they do this training regimen, for a few days. And then Shiba's like, oh, you guys are pretty cool. I guess I'll just join up with you. And so they're like, cool. And then they do like a mock battle, which is like a tie. And then they get attacked by this like unknown, very like cool black looking AMAIM that had been spying on the Yatagarusu camp. And the episode ends. So I think a good thing about this episode is it did sort of address my issues from the last episode, where I was just like, the main character is sort of aimless. We're kind of unclear sort of what the end goal is going to be. And I kind of figured that this pilot that saved him at the end would wind up being part of some resistance that the main character would join, and, kind of give him a goal for at least, some portion of the series. On the other hand, it's so predictable, right? It's like anybody who's watched any anime before knew that was going to happen as soon as you see the guy. So I guess one of my complaints about the show is that it's just starting to feel a little generic. I think that the premise of it is interesting. I think that the mech designs are unique, although they're not my favorite. I do like kind of the main AMAIMs. I think those look pretty cool. I think the music and the sound design is nice. The animation is nice. I think it's got a really killer opening theme, but just the way that the episodes keep, moving is just, like I said, just very generic and very predictable. And that I think that if something interesting's got to happen over the next few episodes to really, keep me pulled in. I'm not particularly looking forward to the next episode. It's probably going to be, another attack, maybe one or two people die, and then Yatagarusu is trying to get back to the base camp, and probably at some point someone's going to change sides from either side, and maybe a third bigger, better enemy, will appear. Who knows? I think one good thing that the show does have going for it, and I kind of hinted at it before, but I thought that every episode is sort of like hinting at a more interesting story. In the first episode, they're talking about the woes that led Japan to getting taken over, right? It's like the aging population and a bunch of environmental disasters. So it'll be interesting if Yadagurusu somehow tries to deal with that, or if they have a plan to deal with that, rather than just like, oh, we got to kill all the bad guys and then we'll get Japan back, because that really doesn't seem like it would solve the initial issue that led them down this path in the first place. And I think that the second and third episode sort of had this idea of like the propaganda machine, where Amu's like, he's hanging out with this like older couple, and, on TV, they're like, oh, you're a terrorist and blah, blah, blah. But they're like, oh, actually, you're a pretty cool guy. We could tell, we're a little distrustful of this, imperial takeover government for, obvious reasons. And then we kind of see that theme built up just a little bit in in the latest episode, where, Yadagurusu are terrorists, but from their perspective, they're freedom fighters. I wish they would kind of focus on some more of those interesting concepts, in the anime realm, rather than just more of the generic, like, we got a bunch of robots and the enemy's got a bunch of robots, so we just kind of have to fight until somebody wins. So I would say, kind of all in all, I would probably rate this episode a little bit lower than the last one, just because it was, in my opinion, just so generic. Just, this is just starting to feel like a filler anime. And I'd probably have to give this episode maybe 6.5. And I think maybe even that might be, a little high. I would say right now it's sort of well executed, anime filler. So I'm really hoping that we see some really interesting things happen over the next few episodes that really make me be like, I want to watch this next episode. I'm excited to wake up, and kind of wait for the new episode to hit on Monday. Anyway, thanks so much for checking out this video. I do the anime reviews that go up on Monday, and then I do figure unboxings on Tuesday. Thanks so much, and keep collecting.